Manna family, we're certainly living in times of extraordinary change and uncertainty. Unfortunately, some people are trying to manage their stress and anxiety by misusing drugs or alcohol. King Solomon warned against this behavior when he wrote in Proverbs 20, verse 1, "Wine is a mocker, strong drink a brawler, and whoever is intoxicated by it is not wise." Intoxication comes from the Latin word intoxicated, which originally meant to poison. Another definition of intoxication is an overpowering exhilaration in the mind or emotions. For example, he was intoxicated with the thought of his upcoming promotion. Today, when we use the word intoxication, it almost always means under the influence of alcohol or drugs. It's another word for drunkenness or being high or being under the influence. It means that your mind is being affected by an external substance. People often lose self-control when they are intoxicated. Excessive alcohol or drugs creates mental confusion initially and then reduces inhibitions. People often say or do things when they're under the influence that they would definitely not say or do when they're sober. As a matter of fact, a large percentage of trouble and arguments and fights on Friday and Saturday nights involve alcohol because it reduces inhibitions and causes people to say or do things that creates arguments and fights. Solomon warned that intoxication is foolish because it destroys your ability to think and act wisely. Now, the Bible does not condemn alcohol. Alcohol is a neutral substance, but it does condemn drunkenness. Ephesians 5:8 says, "And do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Holy Spirit." The principle is whatever fills us controls us, and we're responsible for what we let into our life. If you choose to become intoxicated, you have chosen to put yourself under the control of a mind-altering substance, and that result is dissipation. Dissipation means both depletion and excess. If we do something to excess, it results in the depletion of other things. Being drunk does not focus your mind. It distracts, it confuses, and literally depletes your life and your resources and your focus. It does not add to your life. It takes away from your life. Something that dissipates ultimately disappears. I used to work in drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and habitual intoxication absolutely damages and ultimately destroys brain cells. The Bible does command us to be filled, but not with wine, not to be controlled by wine or any other substance, but to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Dwight Moody was planning to have an evangelistic campaign in England, and an elderly pastor stood up at the planning meeting and said, "Why do we need this Mr. Moody? He's uneducated and inexperienced. Who does he think he is anyway? Does he think he has a monopoly on the Holy Spirit?" A young pastor rose and said, "No, but the Holy Spirit has a monopoly on Mr. Moody." When the Holy Spirit has a monopoly on you, it means that he owns you and fills you exclusively. You are filled 100% with the Holy Spirit. Later on in his career, Dwight Moody was speaking to a large audience doing some training, and he held up an empty glass and he said, "How can I get all the air out of this glass?" Somebody shouted, "Suck it out with a pump." Moody replied, "Well, that would create a vacuum and would shatter the glass." After listening to numerous other suggestions, Moody smiled, simply picked up a pitcher of water, and filled the glass to the brim with the water. "There," he said, "now all the air is removed." Moody went on to explain that victory in the Christian life is not accomplished by sucking out a sin here and there, but simply by being completely filled with the Holy Spirit. If you're directed and controlled by the Holy Spirit, there's no room left in your life for sin and selfishness, because all the air, all the sin, if you will, has been displaced by the presence of the Holy Spirit. As a matter of fact, all victory over sin requires the Holy Spirit's supernatural intervention. The good news is the Holy Spirit lives in God's people, and he empowers them to overcome sin. Solomon tells us, don't be under the influence, don't be controlled, don't be filled, don't be directed by outside substances. That's not wise. Paul tells us, do be under the influence of God the Holy Spirit. Every day, each one of us chooses who or what will influence or fill us. For some, it's nonstop contemporary media that fills us and controls us and influences. God says, choose to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Remember, God designed us to do life together